This is my studio. I'm sitting in my studio.
I find studios very fascinating. There's a whole story like kind of packed in each studio, I feel, for each artist.
So we are live now. It takes immense pleasure to welcome you all on behalf of National Gallery of Modern Art, Ministry of Culture, Government of India, for today's virtual panel discussion, topic Reshaping Art Education in India, brought to you in collaboration with Ananya Drishya. We have with us speaker and moderator Prema Viswanathan, writer and journalist, Professor Emeritus Gulam Mohammed Sheikh, Professor R. Shivakumar, Kala Bhavan Visva-Bharati, Professor G. Jayakumar, Department of Visual Arts, Bangalore University, Ritu Khoda, founder, director, Art First Foundation. Firstly, I would like to welcome Prema Viswanathan to introduce her, reported for leading Indian newspapers from Mumbai, Delhi, and Singapore in the 80s and 90s. In the course of her journalistic career, she interviewed several luminaries of art world, and her piece of Hussein's private art collection was used as introduction to Hussein Ki Sarai, a collection of works published by Moderator Art Gallery. After moving to Singapore in 1995, she switched focus from mainstream journalism to market intelligence. However, she was part of the organizing committee for the exhibition Indian Art Through Ages, Yesterday, Today, Tomorrow, held in Singapore 1999, and also contributed an essay to the exhibition catalogue. Since her return to India in 2018, she has revived her passion for art, writing articles, moderating, and participating in discussions. Her recent book, Badri Narayan, Portrait of Artist as Storyteller, were co-published by Mark Foundation and Pandol Art Gallery in 2020. I welcome the panelists and request the moderator and speaker for today's panel discussion, uh, Prema Viswanathan, to take over from here now. Ma'am, up to you.
Thank you very much, Darshan. I'm indeed honored. It's a privilege and a pleasure to moderate this discussion. And first of all, thank you to NGMA for accepting my concept, and to Ananya Drishya for encouraging me to put this forward. And I'm really happy that we have such an illustrious panel of speakers of today. And what we are planning to do is explore the issue of what art education is like today. I mean, India has had a wonderful history of art education. We have had education institutions of great repute, and of which has produced great artists such as Shantiniketan. We've had the Baroda, MS University Baroda, and also the Madras Art School. And, three of the four panelists today are, in fact, products of these institutions. But what I would like to explore today through the inputs from the panelists is, what is the teaching of art in India today like? I mean, is there a continuity, and is there a scope for imagination and creativity of students to be allowed full play? Or is it still is it focused on skill acquisition to the exclusion of, communicating a vision of art that is epiphanic and visionary, which is rooted in a context which is here and now, but also transcending it to embrace a universal experience? Does the teaching of art inculcate a spirit of inquiry, a questioning of surface appearance, and in an effort to tap into the inner eye, as Binod Behari Mukherjee of the Shantiniketan school did? And going back to the sense of wonderment and imagination and creativity that is part of every child's consciousness, How is that going to be nurtured, or how is that being nurtured today? These are some of the questions I will pose to the panelists, and I'm sure we have a very interesting discussion ahead of us. And a big welcome to the audience today. I hope you have an exciting session ahead of you and you will enjoy it. I will now introduce the speakers. Gulam Mohammed Sheikh is a renowned painter, a poet and art critic from Gujarat, born in 1937 in Surendranagar. He studied painting at the Faculty of Fine Arts, MS University, from 1955 to 61, and at the Royal College of Art, London, from 1963 to 66. He taught art history from 1961 to 63 and 1967 to 82, was a professor of painting from 1982 to 93 at the Faculty of Fine Arts, Baroda. Concurrently, he was involved in the movement of modern Gujarati literature and published essays on art in Indian and international journals, participated in seminars, conferences, and lectured widely in Asia, Europe, and the USA. Professor Sheikh has had solo exhibitions since 1960 and participated in several group exhibitions in India, including Place for People, Bombay, and New Delhi, and abroad, including Returning Home, a solo at the Centre Georges Pompidou, Paris, 1985. Collections include National Gallery of Modern Art, New Delhi, Rupankar Museum of Fine Arts, Bharat Bhavan, Bhopal, Victoria and Albert Museum, London, Fukuoka Museum of Asian Art in Japan, besides private collections in India and abroad. The awards he has received include the Padma Shri in 1983, Padma Bhushan in 2014 from the Government of India, the Kalidas Samman in 2002, and the Ravi Varma Puraskaram in 2009. R. Shivkumar was born in Kerala and educated in Kerala and Shantiniketan. He's a noted art historian, curator, and an author of over 15 books, and a professor of art history at Visva-Bharati in Shantiniketan. His research on the artists of Bengal and Shantiniketan has contributed to extensively remap an important trajectory in the modern Indian art arena. His important books include Shantiniketan, The Making of a Contextual Modernism, K.G. Subramaniam, a retrospective in 2003, A. Ramachandran, a retrospective in 2 volumes in 2004, K.S. Radhakrishnan, 2004, Paintings of Abanindranath Tagore in 2008, Rabindra Chittavali in 4 volumes in 2011, The Last Harvest, Paintings of Rabindranath Tagore in 2011, Ramkinkar Bej, 2012, A. Ramachandran, Life and Art in Life and Art in 2 volumes, 2014, and Enchantment and Engagement, The Murals of K.G. Subramaniam in 2015. He has curated several seminal exhibitions, including Shantiniketan, The Making of a Contextual Modernism, and The Last Harvest, Paintings of Rabindranath Tagore. Jayakumar G. Reddy is an artist and teacher. He is the head of the Department of Visual Arts in Bangalore University. He had his education, he did his master's in the Royal College of Art, London, in 1983, from 1983 to 1985. And before that, he was at the Faculty of Fine Arts, Maharaja's MS University of Baroda, from 1980 to 1983, and at the Kent School of Art, Bangalore, from 1975 to 80. Among his teaching and other assignments was a teaching fellowship, a short-term teaching fellowship at Falmouth School of Art in UK in 1985. He developed Graphic Studio, Karnataka Lalit Kala Academy, Ravindra Kala Kshetra, Bangalore, from 1988 to 1992. He established the Faculty of Fine Arts, Kannada University, Hampi, and was there from 1993 to 1999. He and the Faculty of Fine Arts, Department of Graphic Arts Printmaking at MS University of Baroda from 1999 to 2007. He established the Department of Visual Arts in Bangalore University in 2004 and has been professor and head of the department since 2007. Among the awards he has received is the INLAC Scholarship 1983 to 1985, State Lalit Kala Academy Annual Award in 1980, 1983 and 1987. He has held 5 one-person shows and participated in national and international group art exhibitions, art camps and workshops. Ritu Khoda is a social entrepreneur, award-winning author, publisher of child art books, and producer of critically acclaimed films. She's a TEDx speaker and founder of Art First and Little Light. She challenges the existing paradigm of arts in schools through a full-fledged innovative visual arts curriculum that encourages a fresh take on pedagogy, systematized art education at the school level, and builds the capabilities of art teachers. Ritu holds a master's degree in business administration, IIM Kolkata, and a BA honors in psychology, Lady Shri Ram College, New Delhi. Welcome to all of you. So I shall not waste any time, but go on to the first question, which is addressed to all of you. So please, we can have inputs from everyone. Are the institutions that impart art education today equipped to fuel the imagination of students and forge an artistic vision that goes beyond mere acquisition of skills? Maybe we can begin with you, Gulam bhai.
Gulam bhai, you need to unmute yourself.
Oh, sorry. Where is unmute? Where is it? Unmute thing.
It's below the. Yeah, you're okay now. You can begin here.
He has muted himself again. Please,
Yeah.
Sheikh bhai, click on that thing once more.
Unmute. Is it okay?
Yeah, now it's
okay. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, third time. What I was saying, that ideally speaking, all art institutions are expected to perform the same kind of ideal. But since we are talking about education of, or rather, what shall we call it? Education of higher learning, if you use that word, that means that it is a sort of a college education. I still remember the words that Maharaja Sayajirao, the visionary royal, had used when he was speaking about Kala Bhavan, which was established in sometime around 1990. That he felt that it was not art alone that was the purpose of an institution like Kala Bhavan, and quote unquote, if I were to put in words into that, that will mean skill-based education. But at the same time, it would provide Vidya. So Kala and Vidya were viewed as kind of two areas, which all institutions should address. So in that sense, when Faculty of Fine Arts in Baroda was established, the pioneers thought it worth to introduce teaching of art history, which was not conducted earlier in any art schools. Shantiniketan had many an art historian like Stella Karamdesh and others who conducted classes. But then Shantiniketan was an ideal institution in that sense. But most other institutions did not include what we quote unquote call Vidya. Now in that sense, it was meant that a student is not just a practitioner of art, but a student's mind, that his mind is also equally open. open to all that say what Vidya connote. Vidya means in a sense, in English, one would use the word knowledge. So the pioneers in Baroda saw to it that every student was provided with education in art history, and they devised a course of world art history. And there were no art historians at that point of time, except one, Dr. Hermann Goetz, who used to be the director of the Baroda Museum and Picture Gallery. But he would not join the Faculty of Fine Arts because his view of art history was very different. In art historical term, Kumar, one uses the term hardcore art history. That means you learn about the location of the place, and you ascertain the timing at which that particular work was made, etc. And you do research like all research scholars do in other fields. Whereas the art history teaching in Baroda somehow took a different turn, in the sense that it was not just meant to be giving you information, but also perhaps allow you to explore other areas. How would you do that? And we had no art historians around. But it was interesting that most of the teachers were artists. And some of them had some training in art history, like Subramanian or like Shankar Chaudhary. Even the first dean, Markan Bhatt, was a student of the Barnes Foundation in Philadelphia. So that is the first proposition which I would like to make, that it's not just art alone, but along with art, it is also, that means it is not hand and heart, but also the mind. That should also be taken into consideration. And I think this happened in a situation which was almost bleak, because in Baroda there was, as I told you, that Art Kala Bhavan was instituted way back in 1990. But then, as you use the word, that it is all skill-based education, and more or less based on the Royal Academy model. So you literally sort of copied things and then you perhaps produce some work. So it was basically to produce, initially, I think when JD School of Art had started, it was meant to train children of craftspeople. And hence, this kind of an education sort of allowed them to enter the field where they could find employment, or they would find the use of that whatever education that they have obtained in the art school. Now, what you are talking about is something slightly more focused upon the very business of art. And even there, I think, how do you open the mind of a student? When I studied art history, I had a teacher called V.R. Ambedkar. And Ambedkar was a self-taught art historian. He used to run a graphic studio in Bombay, but used to commute to Baroda, come for a month or two and talk about art. So he would bring in his Panofsky and his Andre Malraux, unusually so, because people would not bring Malraux in art history, but he did. And what he did was to make us involved into the world of art. And I remember that, he would, in fact, start stories. And these stories were about all kinds of things, not necessarily art, but that eventually focus upon art. But at the same time, as a teacher, I remember that he was and it answers another question of yours. Answers means it comes very close to that question, that he would sit with us and talk to us. And if somebody was not feeling, engaged in what he was talking about, then Professor Ambedkar would say, "Arey yaar, dekho, you don't seem to be interested. Let's go and have a cup of tea." And we'd all go, sometimes even to a restaurant called Helmo, and we'll have a cup of tea there in front of each other. We would sit in front of each other. There were about 8 students or something like that. And there he would begin his artistry. So in a way, it went quite deep into our minds. Whatever that he spoke about, I mean, he has his own ideas about the kind of art that he could divide into, like you would say, glyptic art, and he would say, plastic art. Those were the terms which were used in American artistry in those days. But the best thing that one could do, when I began to teach, I had the same question in my mind. I got this from my teachers. My teachers were very open-minded, including Professor Bendre, Narayan Sridhar Bendre, who was a very accomplished artist and also very well-known, to the extent that he had even won a competition in Bombay Art Society against Amrita Shergill. So for us, he was a great artist. We all used to call him Dada. But he used that kind of a technique which is used in performing arts, like music. So you sing and the pupil sings with you. What he would do, he would put his own canvas or oil paper on the board, and then he would draw the same still life that was put for all of us. Or he would draw the same live model that was sitting in front of us. So that we would know where either we were going wrong or whether we were doing the right thing or not. And there was one thing which he said, that don't look at everything in detail. This is something which is very unusual. Most teachers want you to see everything in detail. But he said, look, you look at it, you extend your hand and see where your hand goes on top of that figure and see how big or how small it is. So you measure the figure with your own fingers. To some extent, it comes close to Vinod Bihari Mukherjee when he was doing the Hindi Bhavan mural. He said that he did not use any measure, but he used the measure of his own hands. And that is how he proceeded from figure to figure. Subramanian was very different. Subramanian would never talk to you about your own work. Now, this many people would find difficult. He said, why? And people even used to grumble and say, oh, sorry, he's not telling me whether I've done the right thing or the wrong thing. And Subramanian would say that, look, it's not the business of art to decide what is right and what is wrong. So he would tell you that, look, you take image of a horse and you look at a painting done by a British artist and you have a kind of horse. You look at the horse painted by a Chinese artist and you have another, but it's still a horse. You look at the work of an Indian painter, either Rajasthani or Mughal, and you have still a horse. Now, what is the difference between these three horses? Besides the characteristics of horses, what else is there? What is the horseness of that horse? Which it did matter, it did go into your mind because you looked deeper, you went further. You did not just look at things. My colleague Nasreen Mohammadi, I suppose most of you would know, she was a kind of what you call non-objective or abstract painter. But when she taught, she brought all kinds of small things, like she would pick up straw, leaves, sticks, piece of stone, all kinds of things from the street, Or she would take students there and say that, look at them. Look at these. Is there anything? Do you see anything? Is it worth painting? And still, somebody like Suresh, whose name was just mentioned, was his student. And I remember how he revered her. He felt that she opened their minds to such an extent that they began to look at literally that there is nothing that you cannot paint, that you can paint everything. All that comes into your life, all that is part of your life is a worthy subject. So you don't have to look out anywhere. It is there right in front of you. But Subramanian would go a step further, and he would even say that, you will have to not only look at art of these great masters, Chinese, Indian, or British or others, but look at the tribal and the rural artists. What do they do? And if a Rajasthani or a Gujarati village woman paints a wall and paints a horse, how would you bring that horse in comparison to the horses that you have seen in other artists' work? And you would see that art makes you feel humble, that there is a lot to learn. It's not that you have accomplished. You have to learn a lot by looking. My friend Bhupen Khakkar used to say that artists should be vulnerable. You know what he meant? He said we should be able to make mistakes. Why are we all worried about making mistakes? We all make mistakes all the time. And there should be nothing wrong in making mistakes. It is by making mistakes that you learn. Because one mistake tells you that now you go to another, you won't make the same mistake again. And I even remember that when he painted, and often we used to exchange, our own, experiences, and he would say, "Arey yaar, tu kitna watercolor banata hai, to how does it?" So I said that sometimes it doesn't work, so I have to throw it away. And he would say that, look, sometimes out of 10, I have torn 5. Now, what is it? It is that which makes you look at your own work. With the artists, we become too possessive of what we do. We think whatever we do is so precious that we cannot, get rid of it. I don't know whether I'm answering your question, but I'm just raising, and I'm perhaps putting a few anecdotes in order to open the discussion.
In fact, Gulam bhai, you've actually, preempted one of the later questions which I was about to pose, which is the breaking down of the hierarchy between the teacher and the student, the Sufi concept of Murshid and Murid, where both are on the same plane and where both can learn from the other, so to speak, in different ways, of course. So, in fact, you have actually answered that question too, and it was such a revelation to hear you speak.
Let me tell you that when I started teaching, I was 25, 26. I was still doing my master's. And Professor Bendre asked me whether I would teach art history. And you see, I was a scholarship student. I sort of lived literally on 30, 40 rupees. So for me, it was a godsend kind of a opportunity. But I said, sir, I am still a student. So he said, what is wrong with that? You teach in one class and you become a student in another. Padho, wahan padho. But at the same time, let me tell you that when I became a teacher in my, 1961, my students were only 4 or 5 years younger than me. And I do remember that the first time I went to my class, they would not take me seriously. They thought this one of them is playing a prank. So I had to literally talk to them that, look, now from today, I'm going to speak to you. I'm not going to sit with you, because it is extremely hard to bring down your ego. It is very, very difficult. Because you are taught this thing, because we have the tradition of music where there is a, what you call, gantha bante hai na, that you become pupil, hence you follow everything. The musician is, we have heard those stories that even they used to beat them, they used to do housework and everything, etc. But if you were to, let us say, in that sense, in a university, and you have been dealing with people who are also, roughly educated, then how do you place yourself above them? One of the things which I tried to do, if I were to explain it I don't know how to explain it, it's very difficult. Like, I was given a subject called Story of Art. And I said, wow, that's great. I love stories. So I said, well, I could create stories. But at the same time, I got all students involved in the stories I was telling them. And interestingly, what happened is that I had to conduct 3 classes, because my students, like Vivan Sundaram, who came from Doon School, there were students, who came from middle class Gujarat, and there were those, even a tribal student. So I conducted 1 class in English, another in Hindi, and the third in Gujarati. What happens at that level? That the understanding of art at 3 different levels is entirely different. Each one of them would take, let us say, Van Gogh or Mona Lisa in a different way. A tribal student looking at even Mona Lisa would not respond to the way an educated student would. Or somebody, from another category. One had to devise a language through which you could communicate to them, to reach out to them, and to tell them that, you see, if you were to study, what would you look for? How would you go about? So one of the things I did in my class in art history, in Story of Art, was to give them all illustrations, which we had and we still have a collection of illustrations of world art. So these are all mounted on a board, and we used to mount them on the, on the wall, wall. There was a soft board on which we used to mount them. So I would take them down and I would distribute them to students. And I would say that, why don't you draw and bring it back, what you draw? And they brought back their drawings. And I remember that right from prehistoric times till about, let's say, modern times, we had those classes and I used to give them these illustrations. In the end, we didn't see the original illustrations. We only saw their own drawings. And if they were to construct a history or history of art, they would construct it from their own drawings. That means they had seen something, like, say, if it is a Romanesque or a Byzantine or some other work, each student would pick up something very, each one would have his own eye, his own mind to draw. So if you were to do that, they would still remember that. And they would then reconnect. Now, anyway, I'm just giving you an example that between Murid and between Murshid, it's not very easy to bridge the gap. But one can make an attempt, if one were conscious of that.
Before I approach Professor Shivakumar, I just wanted to remind the audience that, there is a Q&A session at the end of this. So please send your questions in. in the comment box. You can put it in, and we will take a look at it and get the panelists to answer your questions. Coming to you, Professor Kumar, actually, it has been so comprehensive what Gulam Bhai has explained now. It sort of spills over into various other areas which I was going to explore in the later questions. But maybe, you could give us your own insights about, what institutions of art, whether maybe bring it back to the present, since you're still teaching. How do you think, what are the challenges, how do you find today, where, all that was explained by Gulam Bhai, is this still very much in evidence today? Is it still being practiced? Do you see this, do you see the continuum?
Okay. Well, there is a continuum, and as Sheikh Bhai said, at least in Shantiniketan, art history began with artists. And so I am one of the early people who went into pure artistry, what he called hardcore artistry. Yeah. So, but we picked our threads from these artist teachers. So the people who discussed art here, there was people like Stella Cramrish who came and lectured, but it is also artists like Nandalal and Vinod Bihari who wrote about it, and from whom Subramanian picked up various things. And in turn, I too learned, like Sheikh Bhai, from Subramanian especially, and some of the other teachers we had. So we had two kinds of things. The other group of art historians came from people who were Indologists, and not very different from Goetz in the sense museum people. So we had these two streams, and my own experience was learning from the artists, teachers, and that I found much more interesting, because that made cutting across traditions much more easier, because art historians tend to look at traditions as separate entities. And the kind of thing that Sheikh Bhai was saying, that looking at horses from three different traditions and pondering about what links them, what makes them different, and so on, is not something that art historians generally do. So having these artist teachers in some sense was a good thing as far as I could see. Of course, now things have moved, and you have departments which specialize, which look at things in a more academic manner than they used to be. But by and large, the issues, the questions do remain the same. And whether it is practicing art or whether it is teaching art history, I think the central idea is this sense of a kind of liberal outlook on the side of the teacher, and an ability to encourage freedom among his students. And this is quite important. And this giving this freedom to students is an important factor, because it's only then they get encouraged to explore things on their own. Otherwise, we'll be kind of more or less indirectly, even if you don't put it in words, we will be encouraging them to do exactly what others were doing. So that sense of freedom where failure, which he said, is an important factor, because in any innovation, failure is a part. So if we are open enough and we are able to look at what a student does, the effort he or she puts into the work, the kind of arguments that the student makes, rather than just look at the end product, that can be very rewarding. But in a country like India, there is also the other thing that Sheikh Bhai touched upon, that you have different kinds of students coming to you and who are part of the same, class. And that is always a problem, for any serious teacher. So addressing that is an important thing. And this is where I think that sometimes, well-meaning as it may be, the UGC and the Ministry of Education, etc., doesn't realize certain problems, because they would want to, there's a tendency now, especially to, make things uniform across the board. Now, things in India are very diverse. Things are diverse in terms of what each group or class of people feel and from where they come. And those regional variations are then brought into your class. And a teacher has to address all these things and to carry all of them forward. Now, it's not sufficient that if we carry one group forward, we have to carry all of them forward. So you are simultaneously dealing with a number of different kinds of people, and then we are trying to take them along with you and lead them a little ahead. So that freedom should be given to the teachers. So if you think that the best way is to put up standards, do this, give you a syllabus, ask you to teach that, it doesn't work. Because every student who enters a class should leave the class a little better informed, a little more, confident, a little more capable. And I think that is what is important. And this was being the way that early Shantiniketan functioned. We didn't have specialization those days. And Nandalal devised something. They all went through the same kind of maybe 4-year course. There was no specialization at all. But at the end of it, people emerged with different skills. There were painters, there were sculptors, there were printmakers, there were designers, toy makers, writers, art historians, and even filmmakers. So you could all of them could come from the same class. You would have a whole lot of people. And I also think that is a wonderful thing in a place like India, because that's the way to use our human resources in the best possible way. And so there is quite a lot that we have to learn from the art education in India, especially in the early part of the 20th century, whether it be here in Shantiniketan or in Baroda. I think these teachers were people who spent a whole lifetime thinking about these issues and trying to find solutions that will work, that will answer real problems, not sitting down somewhere in some academic committee and drawing out syllabuses and then think, oh, this is what will put you on the world map. They wanted each of their students to move from one level to the next. And I think that is what we should still be doing. So maybe there are things changing. There are other new areas of knowledge developing, new kind of techniques, new kind of things. All that is necessary. But I think we should not, lose sight of these things. And some of these things are still very valuable. That would be my take on it.
Thank you. Professor Jayakumar, now you set up this faculty of visual arts in Bangalore. So to that extent, it's, you have shaped a relatively more recent, you forged a new institution in very recent times compared to, say, Shantiniketan or MS University in Baroda, the Faculty of Fine Arts. So what are the differences that you see? What are the challenges and what are the differences you see in the process of art education in your institution?
Well, it's quite tricky. I benefited from all these people, from both the school and later on and first of all from Ken School of Art, where I had a very good teacher, R.M. Madpat. It's a wonderful teacher who passed out from JJ, and then he was the only teacher I had in the whole school we had, and he would teach literally from from drawing to artistry, and you would have all the magazines. You will throw magazines everywhere, just take it like that, like how Sheikh Bhai did illustrated images. We were exposed to everything. It was like bombardment of everything. It's like chocolates, everything, toffees and everything. It's like whatever one wants would pick. It was, I don't know, organized this thing or it was chaotic, but we loved chaotic. because we come from that kind of a background, and and we were excited about. And from there, I went to Baroda, and then there was a kind of a very sort of a disciplined teaching, and then exposing to various things. Like Dumal was there, and he was not practicing artist, but he was a teacher. Once he was a good artist, he stopped practicing, but he gave a lot of other things, which which gave us a lot. The teacher and student kind of a relation thing, which built, and we were like friends. I mean, most of the students and teacher were friends. And then, of course, a little more to all this, like Sheikh Bhai would have seminars and discussions, and all that input. I mean, it was like, again, it was a treat. It was a treat all through as a student, and I love to be a student. Even now, I love to be a student because that's a treat. I learned so many things. And then from there, going to Royal College, it was a different kind of an exposure. But what I learned there, exposed. But I think I learned more of back home, being in London. I learned more things there about my home, my surrounding, my education, or my culture. That's I could revisit myself what I have experienced when I was away. That gave me a lot of understanding, or glimpses of understanding of what I am today, and that made me come back and share, because it was a different platform. Maybe not everybody gets a platform to be away from home in reflect and see yourself. So that gave me a lot of not just only insights and hunger to share and tell everybody. See, there is an opportunity. You can see yourself. Maybe not necessarily like many times I even remember Tagore at some point was told, after traveling so many countries, he comes back home, and then when he comes out in the morning, he saw a dewdrop, and he says, why the hell I traveled the whole world here in this dewdrop. So I mean, things like that, So I don't know. Anyway, all this put together, opportunity of starting art school here, art department at the university, and the then Professor Timmappa, a clinical. I met him before this thing happened. He told me in a low voice. He told, university is offering the whole education. How can there be a complete education without art education? Not having it is a shame. I want you to come and start it. So that's how I came. And of course, to initiate this, artist Vasudev was also, telling, many times to Vice Chancellor Professor Timmappa, why don't you start the art school, art department? Came here, and then initially it was very exciting, but then it took a toll. I really had to really struggle department, because it was what do you call? It was too much, because I had to start from scratch, not the building up the department, but to tell everybody what is art, or why art is required in the institution. So it was anyway. I started, but fortunately, what happened? We get a lot of rural students from various places, that excites me. And then the other thing is department. So what happens is students would have studied elsewhere in small schools. Most of them are come from very small schools, not exposed to a lot of art, but exposed and some art surrounding. I tap on them. I tap on those areas. What is that they are in their childhood, or what is there available, and instead of bombarding them uh, uh, a contemporary art, it's I go down there and then pick them up and then walk along as much as without imposing much on them, without putting pressure on them, and with a humble this thing that I know that they might or they might not become artists, so-called artists. I mean, as what the world thinks, but we would have a beautiful journey along together with whatever experiences, sharing each other, and then whatever skill they would have acquired. With that skill, how one can open up their I don't know. I was feeling very uncomfortable and I was talking to myself the full screen. I'm comfortable now. Because I don't know okay. So I am not used to talking like that lately, except in the COVID time. I did few classes like that, but otherwise so it's been see, I was lucky to be exposed to all these people. And even when I met Shiv, Professor Jayakumar, while he was studying, I think he had just completed his college. I think, when I was still student, I went there. I spent 15 days in Shantiniketan. You were doing PhD, right? Yeah. So I was lucky to go through and experience all these people. I somehow thought I could select from those things to the selected student, what I could share, jo usko acha wo dena, kind, like a mother would do. If somebody is interested a little bit in theory and a little bit wanting to go a little bit, I would push them that side. I had this opportunity because it's a PG department straight away. If somebody is only want explore with skill, go ahead. If somebody wants to do even a craft, one student is doing a basketry, I say do it. So see, pushing them where I want is not the thing. Pushing them where they would fit or where they would make go further. Once I experimented with one student. I collaborated with this student. He comes from Ramnagar, one rural area. He basically trained in traditional stone carving. He doesn't come from the traditional family, but he learned elsewhere, and he had come here. But I don't know a traditional this thing. And then I told him this school is not meant for that. He said no, son, something else. Okay, come down. So what he did was finally, he took some wire, some threads, and in a car studio, he just made one spider web, small one. That's fine. So I told him, I took him to the jungle. There's a jungle in the campus. I took him behind and I told, you see, there are so many webs. Do you want to make a green web here? Then what he did, he took ropes and he dipped it in the soil, and then he stuck all these ragi seeds to it and watered it and tied it from tree to tree. No, spider web. And in few days, it started sprouting. See how a forward and here something happening here, and it was like a magic. You go out of the department into the campus, green, and you see huge green web and magic. But then later on, what happened? He did few, and you explore. You go into the jungle, it goes small ones, big ones, and later on, after he left the college, he just disappeared. He couldn't do. That's when I felt that you can collaborate with this kind of people, with this kind of mind, very innocent, beautiful minds. They need support. You can't feed them at that point something, or I don't know whether I lack that. I lack that what is required. Maybe I couldn't, because I have to speak them in Kannada. They can't read in English. It's not a problem, but once you go to the gallery, they don't fit in there somehow, and I lack ability to push them into the galleries or those. Anyway, so I know my limitations, so I could only give what is possible in that situation, and then I try and make them. But I only make them. I finally know that I am in trouble, that I know, but I don't tell them that they should become an artist or anything, or they shouldn't. They can become, and many of them are doing gardening. Many of them are artists. Many of them are art students, like Sheikh Bhai knows, and many of them. So one guy has a switch making factory. So you don't know where they end up, but nobody comes and tells I am unhappy. That's something very you feel happy.
That's great.
I don't know. It's a big struggle to put it in the university, because, and as I don't remember syllabus when I was studying in Baroda or in Kent School. I don't remember syllabus. Here in the university, I had to frame syllabus. It's so difficult. So I frame it like art, or just art of today, something like that, very vague, and which can, like what just now Sheikh Bhai spoke and Jayakumar spoke. All this will become part of my syllabus now. See, this is how I, NGMA show happened, Binod Barish show happened. That is part of the syllabus. So everybody tells, your PG course syllabus is half a page. I say, yeah, half a page. But the whole thing, what we do is all goes in. If I frame the syllabus like, from year to year and year to year and this, then you're stuck. Yeah. So nobody, they will question this. This question is out of this question. Those things have happened in the university, because in the university here they have not been exposed to art for many. Have that history as in Baroda or in Shantiniketan. So I had to really fight through. It's a hard time. I had to really fight through the other academics. Even filling a form, there is nothing for the art. Everything is for what is your publications, what is your research, or patents, things like that. I don't know what to do. I just give them blank sheet. They think that I have done nothing. I've been not doing anything. Anyway, this is this Sheikh Bhai and all these people must have felt, experienced long time back. Experiencing it now.
Okay, now I'd like to turn to Ritu. Sorry, I'd like to turn to Ritu, because, we've been talking so far about higher education and, teaching art at the higher level. But what about the transformative aspect of art? How do you bring about a transformation in children? How do you empower them through art? I mean, this is an area that you've been specializing in, Ritu, and which your organization has been fostering. So could you speak a little bit about that, and how the creativity of a child can be nourished and how they can be empowered through the medium of art?
Absolutely. Thank you. And Darshan, don't spotlight me. I'm very happy this way. Thanks. So before I begin, I think there's something that I want to kind of also share, because there is a panel of great professors who have such great experiences of being in the space of art education. And when we talk about institutions, the first key thing that I want to bring to the table is that when we started our work and when we did our research, we found that most schools across India had a very basic, rudimentary art activity-led curriculum. There was absolutely nothing organized, or the focus was a lot more on techniques and skills. But how do we really go deeper into the domain of cognition? Art is also a lot about the affection, right? And as Gulam Bhai had said, it's about the mind. And mind is really powerful. But what is that expression that we would like to kind of bring to the fore? And that was very challenging. Because to break a mindset of teachers who are not trained, who are people who think that art is a hobby and hence they get a job so that they can engage with children, or even if they have gone through some kind of rigor, they're mostly diploma courses. And I don't know how many of you have really kind of reviewed those. They're shameful. Because what they look at is not how can we really empower the thinking in a child. It isn't about saying how can we inculcate a culture of thinking in our children, but it is all about looking at a topical activity, be it a festival or a puja or Independence Day, and very stereotypical images that are they're exposed to time and again. We do not have institutions here that truly promote art education, which can bridge the gap between universities and school education. And also with all of your universities, also, we do not have a master's in art education or a BA in art education, which specifically looks into pedagogy. It looks into methodology. It also looks into the kind of curriculum that needs to be developed. And that's the kind of paucity that we have worked with. And so the challenge that we had was, how do we look at a curriculum that is robust, a curriculum that forces a child to think, a curriculum that has limitations, and within that limitation, where is that freedom to express? So we were just fortunate. So I invited, because of my background in psychology, and it's been very critical for me to understand the child, also to look at the artistic development of the child. So we invited our professors. And that was the time when I had actually met Tushar at a panel like this, and which is where I also met Sharmila. So somehow when we got talking, I invited them to be the advisors on the panel. And that's how the journey for us began, because they were very ignited minds who also wanted to look at a curriculum which was not prescriptive, a curriculum which was also fairly universal, but also kind of localized and contemporary. So these are the kind of challenges that we have looked at, and we've created a full-fledged curriculum right from preschool till class 8th. And very often we've had students from colleges to say that wish we had a curriculum like that, which is so integrated. I can't show you everything, but it's like something that I can show you of. These are the books that we the mirror images. Okay, anyways. So, and this goes on where the whole idea of how we have looked at our curriculum is, how do we really expand the mind of the child? What kind of themes do we need to bring in that forces them to engage with? How do we also bring in the community within their own system? And what we needed was very inspired mentors and artists. And as I said, that was challenging again, because nobody from art schools want to get into the space of school education. And it's a very stopgap measure for them. So again, it was a very hard, journey for us, but we have very inspired young artists who are practicing artists. At the same time, they're also mentors for our teachers. And what they bring to the table is a way of thinking, a way of looking. How do you create appreciation within a classroom with the works that we have? And the way for us was not to really go directly to the child, because research shows that a child is as good as a mentor you put in front of them. So the worry was not really about the child. Kids are absolutely like fertile in the way they think. Their imagination soars high. It'll kind of put us to shame, right? And also the kind of stories that they can weave, which goes on endlessly. But it was about what are the kind of imagery that we need to introduce into our classrooms, which is where the mentors, and these were artists, and we call them artist mentors, who helped us reach out to teachers. And we got into a very intensive 5-year training of our teachers, 50 hours every year for 5 years, which is equivalent to a degree in art. And the focus for us was art history. And I'm keen to talk about art history is because all of you have referred to it. And why is it very important in our school education is unless and until you know your history, you will still come and talk without any context. And to build that context, it became very, very critical for us to also look at the knowledge component of a teacher's. So how do we really up that quotient? So that was about knowledge competency, but the other part of it was also personal competency. Because unlike your lovely stories, I can't really come and share much in terms of who have been their inspiration or who are these artists who have really inspired them to come and teach at school level. There'll be very handful. Badri Narayan was a self-motivated artist and an educator. So what we did with them was also to bring in pedagogy in art, which nobody talks about. And what is that pedagogy? The art of listening, the art of questioning, the art of paraphrasing and not adding judgment to what a child is saying. So those were the kind of, inputs when we brought, and which led to a lot of transformation, not just in our children, but our educators. And again, the kind of challenges that we face, as I said, is, and which everyone's been talking about, is the urban-rural divide. And the urban-rural divide is huge. You have 30% of your students, which is urban population, but the 70% is rural. And you also have a lot of educators who come from that background, but they get into an English medium school where, again, it creates a gap. Because if your mother tongue is different and you're translating something and sharing it with children, there's no way you can do justice to that. So there were several things that we kind of dealt with, and to overcome that, and I'm going to tell you one story of our artist mentor, Reshali. And she's actually done her master's from Shivnadar. She's been with us for a couple of years now. She worked consistently for 3 years with teachers at Kalyani School, Pune, so that she could, one, make them confident and also believe in themselves to say it's absolutely fine to use your own mother tongue to teach. And that's a breaking of a barrier. And every day now we have, and his name is Pankaj, and I don't know if he's listening to this, but he's such an inspired educator who not only listens, he understands. And if there is a gap, he's the kind of teacher maybe the students would talk about once they pass out. And who has completely shifted the whole landscape of how you can engage with art education at school level. So it's also kind of breaking the barrier of looking at homogeneity in bringing in knowledge and language. So with inputs like this, what we see is how our children start to think. And it's a direct correlation. And it's the most empowering and the most rewarding feeling an educator can feel when they see the children stand up, question you, raise questions, and also come up with very creative solutions to the problem that they've been given. So there's a very interesting story of this little boy. This is during COVID, right? And none of these people had colors to play with. They had no art material. And it's the paucity of art material which made them creative. Each one of them actually created a mini installation and they recorded the entire segment. So there's one kid, I think they were given 2 dots and they had to play with dots and create something out of it. And he actually created Mars with 2 moons, and he made his rocket land on it saying, these are my 2 little moons. And so there is, a whole video that he's created and shared. The reason why I'm sharing this video is also the minute you bring them that freedom to think and you also make them accountable, and there is autonomy in the way they are functioning within the school system, there's no way you will not see transformation in children. Right? So that's how we've been kind of looking at it. But coming to the question that if you look at the universe of the learners in India, it's, I think, close to 260 million children, right? Just one organization or one art institute actually is not enough to reach out to many. But I think it's still very important to create a tribe of educators and a tribe of mentors. And so, Jairam, when you said you're taking so many things to put into your syllabus, I just hope you also take this insight to say that we need to also have maybe a curriculum that actually truly looks at a master's or a bachelor's in art education, where they're also given experience to teach at school level and to bridge that gap between university and higher education and school education. Because ultimately, these are the children who will come to you.
Thank you, Ritu. We're running a little short of time, but there's one important question which, is very relevant today, which is how well are we using new spaces and mediums in art teaching, especially the museum space, since this has been, organized by the NGMA, co-organized by the NGMA. There's a very relevant question. Are we actually using our museum spaces and, mediums in the most optimum manner?
So can I maybe take that question first?
You want to answer? Yeah, fine. Go ahead.
Sure, because I've just been in this flow, and so apart.
But we need to wrap up fast because I have to leave.
Just two things here in terms of museum education. One is that it's a very integral part of our training program with all our teachers, and wherever we are present, we make sure that they do go to the museum. We do a whole art history segment within the museum so that they're able to also not just understand the work, engage with the work, have their own opinion on it, but also understand the scale. The unfortunate bit is that most museums where we have taken them, again, because we've had artists who are very inspired, who have actually conducted these sessions for us, we've really not found most of the museums who've had educational cell where they can engage in a very systematic and scientific manner with our educators. So that's the problem that we have faced. But having said that, it's a very integral part of our training program.
Gulam bhai, anything from you on how this can be integrated into the teaching program?
Museums can be a very important educational tool. Unfortunately, we are not using it to the extent it's possible. There are many museums in the country. They're not all great museums, but there are some wonderful museums, and we could make use of it. As far as Baroda is concerned, we have a museum right across the road. Faculty of Fine Arts is situated just against Baroda Museum and Picture Gallery, so you could literally walk down. What is interesting was the Baroda Museum and Picture Gallery is actually an artistry museum because it is a collection of world art. And Dr. Gates was responsible in making it possible to collect as many things from Western art as well as from other places. But that had started a long time ago, even before he joined it. But he actually put it into some kind of a shape, which became a kind of an artistry. So I often conducted my artistic classes in the museum. We would go to the museum. We also went to Ahmedabad. Ahmedabad is a city of museums, by the way. And I do not know whether that many and that kind of museums exist elsewhere. Like there is a museum of kites, flying kites. There is a museum of old utensils. Yeah. There is a museum, let's say LD Museum, which is a museum of fine arts, like you have ancient and medieval objects. But you have all kinds of things, which are there right in front of you. Our country is a living museum. We have to learn from our own environment. We don't really need that kind of a museum. Museum should become an open space. Unfortunately, the museums are not that open as one would have liked them to be. So we have to make use of them, whatever that is possible. So the Baroda Museum also was not that open, but anyway, we made use of it. The kind of education that we have, particularly to use in the childhood, children are never exposed to that kind of art. I have seen even in the what so-called developing countries like Indonesia, where I saw hundreds of children being brought to a museum. I mean, my heart literally went out to them. I said that, look, these boys and girls, right from their school days, are looking at objects of art, whatever it is, but something does strike in your mind if you look at it at that stage. And you may even begin to ask questions, you may ask, and you are right, absolutely, Ritu, that we do not have the kind of, we have not paid enough attention to art education per se. We had a very good department of art education in the Jamia Media University, and Baroda also introduced a course in art education, but we had very few students in art education. And we did not go very far in that area. I must admit that we did not do enough. But we trained, in a way, because all our students, many of them became teachers. So they learned from their teachers and they imparted that education to students. Many of them went to schools because there were no jobs available to them. Many of them were left in the lurch. And so they taught in schools. And something which they had acquired in the art college, was in that sense transmitted to their students. But I don't know how many, and you are absolutely right. We need I don't like to use the word army, but we need to have that kind of an army for the kind of country that we are living in. And you see, art at one level, not ideally, but even in the true sense of the word, is an equalizer. Art that functions across caste, art that functions across, your religious beliefs, art that function even sometimes across political beliefs, And so you have some kind of a connectivity which art provides, and you grow above all those petty, issues, and you may perhaps, acquires something, which is not taught in the syllabus, which is not part of the syllabus, which is not part of what a regular academic teaching. But if that works I think we have, perhaps I think Sheikh Kumar will tell you that organization, Goa, that organized the survey of art schools, we must be having hundreds or thousands of art schools. But how many art schools that we can talk about? Can we talk about saying what we are talking? We are talking in air, perhaps, we are only talking about 10 or 12 institutions. All the rest are just run of the mill. They are all, sometimes they are also money-making institutions. But I'm not saying that they should be stopped. They should also continue to, because at least they have a role somewhere in the society. Society, in a larger universe, using the word of Ritu, that is in the larger universe of the world in which we live, art plays a very small role. But art, if it can play a role slightly bigger than that, or if it continues to play the role slightly bigger than that, that will even address some of the issues. For instance, we are talking about terrorism, we are talking about all kinds of issues. I have always said that, if in a place like Kashmir, you had introduced 10 different wonderful art schools and art teachers, provided them with the best of music, provided them with the best of drama, provided them with the best of art, a lot of people who go astray, might perhaps move towards an area which would be a creative area. And the creative area, in the best sense of the word, is an equalizer. Right? It works against all kinds of divisions, divisive. So society in that sense needs art. It's not that art needs society. It's society. And somewhere our, whatever you call them, planners, Planners are sometimes not aware of this thing. You don't have that. When I was asked by, I think, some committee in Delhi, and I said that, look, they asked me to speak on art. And I said, look, one thing, if I may say so, that you have so many bureaucrats, and they work all over the country, and they have a direct access to people. How many of them are aware of visual art? I said there is more visual illiteracy than literacy. We do not have visual literacy. And we have to, I mean, visual means, also auditory, also in other terms. If they were open to arts, they would perhaps bring about a change much bigger than the change. And that change would be from within. It won't be from above. It would be working with people, and people would then might use, I think. So in a sense, the business of art is a serious business. It's not something which is to be considered as just a hobby or an entertainment. It's a serious business. It goes into the life of people, and people change. Many of my students, I remember people, they were students, and you said that there are students who are good and students who are bad. And somebody said that we have to deal with each one of them. And I used to teach them, I would show them all the best art. And sometimes people would ask, Inko kya hoga? What would they do? What will they do? There nothing would happen. I give you an example. 30 years later, after, some chap, who was a dud in the class, who badly passed his whatever artistry papers, came back, and he was in... he walked up to me and he said, who are you? He said, Bansi, you are, where are you? He said, sir, I went to America and I saw. He said, ek cheez aapko batana chahta hu. I said, what? He said that what I had seen in my class, I saw it in a museum in New York. And I came back and I wanted to tell you that remained with me all my life. So even a dud had carried a work of art that he had seen in the class. You thought he did not understand. You thought he will not pass the examination. But he was carrying it somewhere, and it opened his mind. Perhaps somewhere later. It does happen, even on a small scale. But if it happens somewhere, that is where perhaps, there is... we have to begin somewhere. Begin with, we cannot say that we have not done this. Yes, we have not done this, but can we not start?
Thank you so much. Yeah, I think we need to now open it up to questions. So before I hand over the mic to Darshan, I would like to thank all of you. It's been a wonderful experience listening to all your insights and, I suppose somewhere the solution also lies in all the insights that we have gathered today. And I would also like to thank Darshan for his, for organizing this, and Vasudev, SG Vasudev of Ananya Drishya, both of whom have been responsible for allowing this full fruition. Thank you very much. And there is now, let's get into the question answers. Bala Chandran says, or do you want to lead the question answer session?
So you can answer. Somebody can answer that.
Okay. There's a question from Bala Chandran which says, whole brain thinkers make good leaders. Unfortunately, with an excessive focus on science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, there is very little that students are exposed to in terms of right brain activities like art in India. Instead of focusing on art education only to develop skills in art, shouldn't we be encouraging art education throughout the learning years to trigger and develop a spirit of innovation, creativity, and imagination in children and students? I think this question has already been answered by Ritu and to some extent by Gulam Bhai also. Is there any other question, Darshan? Yeah, there is Vrishali Purandare. Have there been conscious efforts in decolonizing art history through art education and for young artists? Do you see enough efforts in making alternative modernisms more accessible through art education? If so, could you give references to such endeavors? Perhaps I can call upon Shiv Kumar to take this question because it deals with the aspect of decolonizing art history.
Well, at the university level, this has been going on for quite some time, because I think any Indian art historian, dealing with modern art, has more or less debunked the whole Western notions of modernism quite a few decades back. So we think in terms of we don't think in terms of one universal model of modernism anymore. I think maybe since the 80s, this has certainly changed, maybe even a little earlier. In practice, we have always developed multiple ways of dealing with that. Of course, the Western, history of modernism was important, and it was a major reference point, but it didn't mean that art not only in India, but in many other parts of the world, non-European world, they didn't exactly, it was not completely a derivative discourse, but it was something that developed in response to that. And so that alternate modernism was already there. But in terms of art history, we hadn't developed enough tools to discuss that and so on. But this has been going on at least for the last 40, 50 years now. So in the way academics deal with it today, I think we have moved away from that altogether.
Okay, Rajan Shripad Fulari asks, how do you see art education in perspective with traditional and contemporary practices in art school in India?
Would you like me to take that question?
Yeah.
Okay. So Rajan, when we talk about art education at school level, we don't try and make such binaries in the way we approach the curriculum. It's a very integrated process where it's important to also understand how to contextualize that knowledge. So when we look at a curriculum, we also look at if it is the initial stages, then it's a lot more about expression, it's about possibilities, where they're exposed to different art forms and different practices. But as you go higher, and that's when you realize that it's the critical thinking which becomes far more important, we then integrate it, right? So if I'm talking about, when you talk about traditional art practices, I'm going to look at it a little differently, and I'm going to talk about looking at different art forms, which could be contemporary, it could also be indigenous, it could be folk. But what becomes very important and critical is how do you look at it at a level where it's integrated, it becomes a part of your daily engagement. Also to understand for each of these, what is the social milieu that it exists in, and to make your children aware of these nuances becomes a very important part of our curriculum. I hope that's answered your question.
Yeah. Thank you. And there's another question from Anuradha Darishwar. It says, what about people who have not had formal education in art but are self-taught? Anuradha herself being one of them, I think. How important would it be for them to learn art history? How can they educate themselves to produce meaningful work? Anyone like to take
gone very far, but let me cite you an example. A few years ago, that was about 30 years ago, actually I came to know from some of our students who were from Sri Lanka. Now, a group of Sri Lankan artists at some stage decided that they would go to people rather than teach people in an institution, and went to the outskirts of the city of Colombo and started talking to them about art. They also carried with them slide projectors. They showed them slides, etc., etc. They went on for a number of months, several months, and then they found that there were a lot of people who came out who had been never exposed to art, and they all wanted to do something. They wanted to learn, And they said that they would start an institution. They did start, and they said that we will not give you any degree or diploma. Would you like to come? And we will not see your qualifications. We will not see whether you have completed your school or school education or not. And we would like to have you all. They experimented for, I think, about 2 or 3 years. I remember somebody should find out about it. I can even make inquiries. But it was a very interesting experiment to open out and, not bringing students into the art school, but the artists going to people and interacting with them. But eventually, anyway, that I do not know whether that experiment finally. But what I would feel is that since Ritu and you have, Prema, you have already said that each individual, each child has something in him. There is a creativity. Nobody's, it's not your jagir. It's not something which everybody, all of us possess something or the other. And we should be able to sort of, practice it. But this is all said and done. Our schools and our art schools are not doing that job. So what do we do? So we need to then initiate, I think somewhere we should initiate some kind of a movement, where we would, and Ritu rightly said that there is school education and there is also college education. But there is no in between. How do you connect the two? It's not that I go there for a short while to teach in a school. That would not serve the purpose. We will have to actually devise ways of dealing with the problem. And perhaps, it may perhaps bring out some new ideas. You never know.
On this, I would like to share a bit. Like in Bangalore, we do art park every first Sunday of the month. We do art park at Ravindra Kalakshetra. It's a small initiative by a small group of artists. We just go on one Sunday morning. We invite some 10-15 artists from all over. We give small, a little bit of material like papers, and they come and they draw. So it's open to public. Public come, sit with the artists, talk to them, share with them, and many times they ask for paper. We give paper. They ask questions. They see the process. It's like art going into the public. So we want to open up that, and we did that, and it is still continuing it, and it's quite a lot of feedback. A lot of people because of this COVID thing. People are asking, when are you starting it? So they're looking forward. And I also, what I do is we also include a lot of art school students from various art colleges to participate. And also facilitate the people who come there, help them out, and talk to them, and sometimes we do printmaking workshop, woodcut workshop, things like people can come and try, and a small bit of activity, but it's been quite a good response.
There's one more question by Gangadhar Menon. How can a contemporary art school bridge the gap between art and craft, which is widening by the day, and produce a great amalgam like S.G. Vasudev or K.G. Subramanian?
Are you taking it?
Well, one kind of thing is if the art schools itself sort of doubles up as a design kind of thing. This is what happened in the early Shantiniketan, that it had a lot of activity where these divisions would kind of gradually become less important. And I mean, Subramanian himself came out of that kind of education system. And if artists have this interest, and also if you think in terms of the art not as a kind of hierarchical kind of practice, but something like a language which moves from one kind of level to another, then this can be easily bridged. This was the approach, at least, that somebody like Nandalal took when he came to art education. He saw all of them as maybe a stacked up language, which kind of runs from one end of the spectrum to the other. And therefore, you can also then move very freely from one end of the spectrum to the other. And especially, you see this in an artist like Subramanian. But somehow, in most art colleges and most art students tend to stick to a small part of that spectrum. So if you encourage people to explore the entire spectrum of art language, then maybe this will become pretty easy. And to some extent, if you look at the contemporary Indian art scene, you can see that artists have worked in different spectrums and create even not merely craft, but great things. Like, for instance, somebody like Mrinalini Mukherjee, I mean, she made great art, starting with something which we might consider craft. And you can say not only her, but several people across the world now who has done that. So these have these potentialities to go beyond the kind of practices with which they associate right at the moment. Maybe an imaginative person can come and take it much further ahead. So I think this is something that, again, the art schools need to look at. So that was what I was trying to say in the early. Nandalal certainly tried to break this divide and allow people to work across. And he thought maybe somebody who makes good toys can be as important socially as somebody maybe who makes great painting or sculpture or things like that. So I think we can go back, and it will be also useful in terms of, I mean, using, because I think we are still a country where we are short of resources. And therefore, that kind of an education does have a certain advantage and a certain social purpose behind it, besides, I mean, maybe the advantages it gives to individuals.
I'd like to add one or two things about Baroda. Sorry, have I cut you short?
No, not at all.
Subramanian and Shankar Chaudhary, in a way, brought it from Shantiniketan and introduced this idea of having an art fair. One of the objectives was to open up the school of art, to practices other than what you normally do in a classroom, or even in let's say, in an art history class. That there could be an art fair, and art fair, in that sense, was the kind of work that you do informally. So every day for a few months, all students and teachers, gather together wherever there is space to make objects, do things. Like he mentioned toys, and Subramanian made toys. But he also designed sets of, a new play that is being, put up there by students. Then you also make all kinds of things in textile, or you use metal, you use all materials which are available. It was in a way a Gandhian principle, if I may to say that, not to hanker for something fancy, but use the material which is there, which is with you. So what Subramanian did was to make those things, make students to work on rope. And they made sort of, things which Mrinalini Mukherjee learned to make objects, which are like hangings. But from the hangings, she came to make those fantastic sculptures, She, in a way, brought craft to that level, they should. So it is possible that something can emerge out of it. Secondly, for an artist, it is a bit of a respite. Instead of thinking, sort of, sitting in the studio and all, you go out and work with others. You sit with your students and you make things with them. And that becomes not only a collective, it's not just a collective spirit, but also to be able to share ideas. If somebody is making like that and you make, and you replicate it, or you make, and that happened for about 30 to 40 years. Unfortunately, it has come to a stop in Baroda because of some peculiar reasons. But there is something which university will never understand. What is the meaning? And that, I tell you, the proceeds were used for education. The children of the poor families were given grants from the proceeds which were made from the objects, which were sold in the art fair. So there were multiple purposes that it served. So one can do a lot of things by breaking barriers between art and craft. Even within your own practice, you can,
We in fact face that a lot with school teachers, because again, their understanding of what craft is and what art is, there is a very clear divide. So I think for us also, it always takes a lot of time to educate them to understand that what they're talking about craft is just handwork that they do with scissors, but it's not really craft in the way we look at craft. And then how can you really integrate it even in the work that you are doing? But
it's like a caste system, I tell you. It's a Varna problem. Because people look at it as though it's not our, it's somebody else's. I remember, I give you just one example, that we conducted a workshop for 1.5 years, getting what you call quote unquote craft persons, but because I got a grant from Handicraft Board. So I invited people of all kinds, weavers, painters, workers in clay, all sorts of people like that. And they came and worked on the campus. The idea was that students would get to know about. Now I tell you what we saw. I mean, there are hundreds of things which I can talk about, but just one or two things I'll tell you about. One is that all, when artists came to see the workshop, they saw all these tribal or rural artists working, they sometimes said, "Oh, ye galat kar raha hai. Isko ye batao," And some very famous artist came and he told Ganga Devi, said, "It's not complete. Leave it like that. Don't do anything more." Ganga Devi just looked back and told this one, he said, "Ye pura nahi hua. Ye hum karenge." She told him off right on his face. One fine example I give you, that there are, craft people. Ritu, this I would like to share it with you. The people whom I used to see in my childhood, they make little toys of clay, and they used to bring them on a little basket and carry them all over the street, and children would buy them. These are all the toys of clay. And people today make toys which are of plastic, all kinds. But toy is made to be broken. Toy is not made, it's not to be permanent, so that you can make another toy. You can keep on making it again and again. I give you an example. I looked for that workshop, if there was anybody, and my students went out and somebody brought the news that there is a woman who makes these. So I said, okay, bring her. She came with her child, and she had another child who was slightly grown up. And all three of them came to the campus. I said, what are you doing? She said, I am doing this. What they do, you see, the Gujarati folk toys are made in clay. Then they are dipped into chuna. Because chuna ka pani log phaak dete hai. So you carry that chuna pani and chuna pani gives you white. So you have a white. Then you go to the market and you try to look for the cheapest of color. Those colors of crystals. Remember the blue and green? You put few, this much, and it gives you that much color. Okay. And you dip them into, after having dipped them into chuna, after they dried, you put them into them and they become pink, or they become blue, they become green. Or you dip them from the top and that is green. You dip them on the other side and it will be pink. Then I said, but my dear, I spoke to her in Gujarati. I said that, but how do you deal with ये plastic toys का क्या करेंगे? He said, sir, मैं आपको कुछ दिखाऊंगी. मतलब क्या है? Next day she brought something. And it was a toy, same kind of toy, but it was all very glossy. And it was sort of dark. And then I held it in my hand and I looked at it in the sunlight. It was like a dhoop chham, blue and green. Those glossy. I said, how did you make it? Did you buy color? You can't afford because you are selling it at 50 paise all there. How can you afford that color? He said, sir, what do? We go to the roadways where they are building roads and using tar. We picked up some tar. Perhaps we stole some tar. We boiled it up and we put our toy into that tar. And this is what it has become. See the creative imagination. How do people deal with their situation? And she said, and that looked like plastic toy, but it is not plastic.
Darshan, do we have time for one more question? It's quite an interesting. Or do we have to wind up?
I think we can take this question, the last one.
Yeah,
No
it's
problem.
quite an interesting one. Amrita Tiwari asks, why is Indian art not known or taught around the world and in India compared to Western art? Even schools focus on Western and European art over Indian art. Why?
Somebody.
Perhaps our Kumar, Professor, do you want to take on that?
Okay. It would not be right to say it's not being taught, but I do understand your question. Maybe, but to some extent in the art colleges, and if you think in terms of universities abroad, they are being taught. Although obviously they focus much more on Western art, but here I think all the major art history departments certainly teach Indian art, and at quite some length. So that's not the problem. But I think there is a certain general perception about it. And I mean, our own, museums and institutions are not conducive for learning Indian art. I wanted to actually work on Indian miniature painting, but I knew that I will not get access to them. And therefore, I completely left that. And today, you can see Indian art in American museums and British museums are available to us online. But Indian art in our museums are not available to us at all. I mean, so this is, I think, one of the big problems why Indian art never gets into the to the world, of Indian education in a more broader way, because it should be accessible. And this is also something that we touched upon, the question of museums. You go to the Metropolitan Museum website, they have put hundreds of their art objects, including Indian art, and you can download them and you can use them even for publication purposes. But you go to any Indian, the National Museum or the Indian Museum in Calcutta, you hardly find 4 or 5 pieces there. So basically, our museums are not education friendly. And that is a great disservice to kind of thing. If a country, we talk about Indian culture so much, but we don't share it with our own people. I think that's the big thing. So maybe you're right in a sense. It doesn't get the kind of thing. That's the accessibility is what makes it more, available to people, more available to researchers and young students especially. And that's not there totally. And I think this is one area where including the LGMA should come out and really make their collections accessible to people. And once they do that, I think the kind of research and the quality of research and the quality of information that people have will really go up. If Western art is so popular and much more taught, it is because it's much more accessible. Absolutely. I can probably get all the images I need for my classes on the internet for Western art, but for Indian art, I don't get it. So it's much more difficult to get images to show to the students.
Anyway, that's a good note to end.
Prema, just to add to that, because at school level, so you've talked
really short because we are running terribly.
Yeah. So at school level, what we have done, and I just want to show you an example, all our books have a segment which talks of art appreciation, and we have looked at Indian art. So right from, say, preschool till grade 8, we've made it mandatory so they also get to understand their own art and their own culture. But again, because there's paucity of literature, so we also write about Indian arts and we create stories for children. So we try and kind of bridge the gap there. But that's an effort that we have made a very focused one so that we can introduce our children to Indian art and Indian culture.
Wonderful.
I want to add, Chipana, one line.
Yeah.
This is what I've been thinking a little loudly, that what a craft or Indian art, all this what we are talking about, traditional art, it has become maybe to our generation, maybe we are exposed to it, we've seen it, but the next generation, it is an exotic thing. They have not seen it. So it as new as our own art or other art forms in indigenous art forms, or as exotic as it could be from anywhere. And the bombardment of these books of Western art has taken over. So I think there is the kids. It's not the kids' problem because they are not been exposed. They don't know. I mean, they have never seen a teacher has never seen a basket making or a craft and pottery. They have not seen. So we say, when we say our traditional art forms, we are talking about a couple of generations back. It's not available. Maybe in some remote rural areas it is available, but it is unreachable. We have lost in our own tradition. No?
Yeah,
we have lost it. We have to. It is not accessible to our kids. Even our own kids,
Right. Anyway, thank you very much, viewers, for the wonderful questions. We could go on and on. I think we have really overshot Darshan. I hope that's okay.
Yeah, that's okay, ma'am. So before concluding, I just want to put up one thing. The Government of India, Ministry of Culture have come up with one site called Museums of India. The initiation started 2 years before. And, it initially started with 5 museums, including NGMA, National Gallery of Modern Art, Delhi, which has a huge collection, about more than 50,000 of artworks. So that has been digitized, which is available on this site with, certain basic information like the medium, the material, what has been used on, and the size and the collection, including the accession number. And Victoria Memorial Museum is one of the museums which is again digitized. Of course, the museum which has a very large collection is still in the process. But I think it's the halfway it has been digitized, and government is thinking to digitize, in future, to digitize other museums, also including, ASI sites, which has museums, and those collections should be digitized. So I think, it is the connect what is more important. And of course, art, as far as personal, my experience, art is something which is learned in school, college, museum, and of course our daily experience. That's more important. And before I conclude, I just want to make one announcement. National Gallery of Modern Art, Bangalore, in collaboration with Gandhi Center for Science and Human Values, will be presenting a talk by Professor Binoy K. Behel, who is an art historian, photographer, and filmmaker, on the Friday, 26th February at 4 p.m. It will be an online talk. I request all the viewers to join the talk. And on behalf of National Gallery of Modern Art and Ananya Drishya, I thank the speaker and the moderator today, Prema, and also the panelist, Gulam sir, Jayakumar sir, Shiv sir, and Ritu. It has been a pleasure, and I think it would be an eye-opener to all the viewers today, with a new perspective and a new dimension. And also the pandemic has brought a new dimension and challenge, of course, for the art world. And the major challenge for the art education system, the pandemic has brought in a new perspective. So with this, I conclude. I thank one and all the participants. Good evening. Namaskara. Have a wonderful night. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
How do you exit?
That's what I'm looking. Okay, just.
Leave still.